dingy 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 dingy. Hey there, welcome to Nabuguzi Kiwanuka. This is the place where we help you unravel social constructs, discuss self-development in line with mental health, and everything in between that directly or indirectly affects us in the millennial world around us. My goal is to create a virtual platform for you and I to explore and engage in pertinent conversations society is silent about. What you get from this is without a doubt a chance for you to have moments of self-assessment so that you can ably jump into your next best season. I am your host, Nabuguzi Kiwanuka, a lawyer, founder, team lead of Equate Foundation, an addict and lover of insightful conversations, and a professional unraveler of social constructs. If you're hearing my voice for the first time and are the kind of person who is not scared of being a better version of yourself, even if it requires you to contradict who you were 24 hours ago, you made the right choice to come here, because here we keep unraveling the true version of ourselves to reveal the best that we can be. To the return subscriber, much respect. I'm actually saluting you. I know you don't see me, but I'm saluting you, so you need to salute back. Yeah. You're the reason for my return to this venture, and I hope that I'll forever serve you the content that you need. We couldn't close this month any better. Kiira Brian Alex, also known as Kiira Waibi, is a human rights lawyer and poet who walked away from society's expectations of how he should pursue his career. As someone who loves to tell his side of the story, I guess challenging the status quo is no uphill task for him. In this conversation, Waibi shares his journey in the poetry industry and how he fuses lawyering with poetry while teaching his students. Let's get into this. So, Brian, welcome to Nabuguzi Kiwanuka.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad to be here.
You're glad to be here? Yeah. We're glad, I think. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming.
I know.
Vanity. I know. Please introduce yourself to our listeners.
There isn't much to say about me. My name is Kiira Brian Alex.
Yeah.
I prefer going by the name Kiira Waibi.
Right.
As some of my friends know. Africanacity, yes. And that's my name, and I'm a lawyer professionally. But also I do spoken word. I do spoken word too. So, and I write it. So what I perform is stuff that I've written. So besides that, there isn't anything much to me.
Nothing else to you. Nothing at all.
Other things are really things that are just still in the works, trying to, for example, broaden the arts experience for your audience as a spoken word artist, trying to learn some guitar here, do a little singing, do a little keyboard. So those are things that I never like to outrightly talk about, because again, they haven't gotten to the place where I would want them to be. Yes, okay. But they're also coming up very soon.
Well, the listeners will say, the witnesses here, they'll be like, hey, that guy.
He talked about it.
I was there. I saw him coming up. Yeah. So what did you want to be while growing up? Because now I'm seeing you in the art space. Actually, let me just call them the art space, because even law is in the arts field.
Okay.
So what did you want to be while growing up? The things that you're doing right now, are they things that you always wanted to do? From childhood.
Yeah.
What did Brian Alex at the age of 5 look like?
I don't think I even quite remember what it looked like at 5. Honestly.
Which is the farthest you can remember?
Remember, probably 7. I should have been about
not so far.
P1, P2.
So what did that Brian look like?
So at that time, Brian, to start with, as still is, was a meek person, very meek person. You can still see that is me. Never really changed. So that to start off, but then also I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor. That is, not very many doctors nowadays, but a medical doctor is what I wanted to be. I have to be specific. you might think it is something else.
Which doctor?
Which doctor?
Well, I think the business is still lucrative.
Is it in Uganda?
I don't know.
Really haven't had a number of success stories, but
yeah, we need to explore it.
Doctor.
Yeah.
That actually spanned the entire period of my primary school, really, and got into high school also a little bit up until around senior 3.
Okay.
When I started to realize that the sciences were not mine, not my cup of tea.
They refused you.
Yeah, they really rejected me unapologetically. And so when I realized that, I was like, you know what, I have to try something else.
Yeah.
But then also in wanting to try something else, so I kept thinking, could it be engineering? Because again, physics wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Physics wasn't that bad. It was the chemistry and the biology.
To the sciences because society says that, or is it that you wanted the sciences?
No, I actually think I grew up thinking they were the thing. So as a child, of course, I wouldn't say that deliberately, like consciously, I got to make that decision. But so I think it is the inadvertent influences that we have growing up. Maybe you've had it somewhere, you've seen your dad talk about certain profession a certain way, so somehow being a doctor was the thing. And if you're not a doctor, maybe you could be an engineer. At that time I didn't even think about being a lawyer. I didn't. And so after O level, of course, I think by O level, when we're sitting for our final exams, I really knew that sciences were not my thing. Like I would pass physics, as I said, and I was also doing some technical drawing, and I was doing it quite well. So when I get to A level, the school that I went to was very, they give you combinations and choose for you because they've seen your results. So that school admits me and they give me PMTD. Okay. So on the very first day when I reported and I saw that had given me PMTD, like given that I'd passed them, I knew. I would have easily said, oh, let's go with it after I passed. But I knew that my passing was, really God's luck. Like God was there. God was right at the center of everything.
But you were doing well with physics, so why do you...
But that is only physics. Then what happens? What happens to the maths?
Oh, you weren't... Okay.
No, I wasn't good at it, but then somehow in my UNEB, like I had a distinction. I was like, what?
Wait for another miracle.
Like what? Like that. So when they gave me that combination, I just knew, no, there is no way. So I told them straight up, didn't even have to think about it. Told them, give me hell D. That's what I'm going to do. So they switched.
You knew all. Man, let me tell you something. I also wanted to be a doctor.
Like, medical still.
Of course, idiot. Of course. I wanted to be a doctor. I was sure. I mean, the spaces that I was in were very medical.
Okay.
Sciences. Maybe my mother is a nurse, and then
my mom is a nurse too.
Then my eldest brother, I think he was doing something related to electricity. And then my middle brother was still in the hospital. So I was like, where else?
This is it.
Where else? I didn't know anything else. My mother's friends, the relatives that I forged, they were in the science field. I was like, what do people do in arts? What do people do in arts? And then here I am. I had to switch schools because I couldn't return to the school where I was. These guys couldn't give me the sciences. My life crumbled. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? What exists beyond the sciences? Because I was good with biology, physics. Chemistry was an enemy. I liked it, but she rejected me. Unrequited love. Unrequited love. For maths, it was it was on and off, and off. It required so much attention that I didn't have.
Okay.
But then naturally,
you didn't have the attention. Where was your attention at?
There are other things to attend to.
What other things did you have in high school? What were you doing exactly in high school that kept you so busy?
Nothing, I swear. I was just being stubborn. I was just being stubborn and playful. And let me see what else. Other subjects, maybe.
Okay, other subjects.
Yeah. Shut up. It's a single-sex school that I was in.
That doesn't rule out everything.
Shut up.
It's a single-sex school. You know it.
So it's very surprising that you even had an option that you quick on your fingertips. I'm going to do healthy. I didn't know anything. I mean, I was crushed. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? My mom had to do some search and see these are the courses that exist. I was like, what is that? What is that? Then combination came. I think they just gave me and I did. I don't know how I got it. You say the schools give?
Yeah, so for you'd find the list that has been already put, you're admitted, and then they would put their suggestion of a combination against your name. Depending on how you performed, they would think you're best fit for this.
Yeah, I did head art, so I think they chose for me. While we're in school, when we joined the school, people were changing.
Yeah,
they switched. But I was like, I'm not the kind of person. If I've put my mind to it, let me see what comes out of it. So when you just said, I don't even know. Maybe I just went with what they gave me, and then you loved history.
No, I didn't. No, I loved to learn history. But so when it came to actually answering exams about it, like I would be fascinated by things that happen and everything. I would enjoy it while we were in class. And it came to having to read and especially, you know, having to cram events and how everything happened chronologically. But that is now A level. Now I'm talking about A level.
A level.
A level, yeah.
Oh, for the part of A level,
yes, for A level. I really loved it when it was being talked about. When it came to answering the exams, I didn't quite like it.
Metternich.
I didn't. Metternich and who are those other guys? Ottoman Empire. All those guys.
Ottoman, like, Ottoman, whatever. I don't know.
I really didn't like it. But now, like, I think the subject that I was really sure of for me was literature.
I had a feeling
that I was sure of. I loved it. I loved to write. The only subject that came closest to making me think otherwise again was French, because then they would stroke either French or literature. So
there was just only those two options?
Yes, like you either do French or literature. If you had literature and you wanted to take you couldn't take literature and still have French. So it was either or, but I decided to go with the literature. Really, I loved the subject.
So here you are, a lawyer.
And also, not to say that at the point that I was doing healthy, that I'd already made up my mind on, you know, being a lawyer. It was, I think it's just been, for me, it's been evolving from one thing to the other. Because even now when I was doing healthy...
from doctor to healthy, what was life like in that moment?
There isn't much to say.
What did that feel like?
Of course.
Exactly, because like, what am I going to do with my life?
Exactly. So there is that bit of saying, maybe I did not try as much for the sciences. Because also I have a feeling I did not try as much. You
have a feeling. You're not sure.
I would rarely. Okay, I'm sure. I would rarely, do. I don't know, what do they do with math? Like for me, I used to call it revising. But like, for it has a more, should I call it a kind of practical bit to it, calculate and whatnot.
All the time.
Now, as those guys who would get my book and read, like I would read, I wouldn't calculate. So I just read, I'm like, okay. So here we did this and this. Oh, this is the formula. Good, let's go. Until I reach a point where I realize that I'm not understanding it and I have to calculate. If that is a prep time, a period, then the moment I hit the wall, like I can't understand it, then I'm done reading math for that night. So that was the problem. I didn't really do a lot of it, but yes. So still, there was that uncertainty on what I would become, because again, and I think becoming a lawyer is something that happened way later. Like, S6, you now know you're getting into campus. So what exactly are you going to do? Yes. And somehow for the arts, they made it seem like being a lawyer is up here, like the holy grail. Like you've done arts and you don't want to be a lawyer. Like that seemed the thing. But then again, for me, I had a lot of doubts about it, because I kept thinking, oh man, I've been told, because I had some friends that had gone before. So they would tell you, being a lawyer, you're going to read books. And here I was complaining about texts of history, and those stories that we had. And I'm like, no, I can't read again anything this much or more. So I kept thinking, man, I can't cram an entire constitution. Because guys would, and it's interesting how people were lying to us.
Yeah,
that
people always making it hard.
Yes, it seems like the next level is always harder than the one before.
Yeah.
You'll have to read the entire constitution. There are like 100 acts of law that you have to have in your head. I'm like, how am I going to do this? But then ultimately, and for me, the breaker is, so in that confusion, I started nurturing love for journalism. Yeah, so now I actually also wanted to be a journalist. Yeah. And if anything,
we're quite alike.
We're quite alike. If anything, I'd really made up my mind that this is what I wanted to do, being, a journalist. And I used to watch a lot of TV. I would see Maurice Mugisha. Right. And I was like, man, I can't do that. I want to be like that guy. Until the time came for us to make those selections, and I asked, of course my dad asked me, and I told him, I want to be a journalist.
Okay.
And the guy told me, what? I'm like, I want to be a journalist. And he told me. So one time we're watching television and he tells me, Maurice Mugisha was reading the news. Yeah. So he asked me, when do you think that guy is going to leave television?
No way.
Yeah, like
no way.
Sorry to say, but for me, I felt like his understanding of what journalism can deliver you to was really narrow. Yeah. So for him, it was, if you've done this, you're either ending up on the TV or on radio. Yeah. And when do you think those people are going to leave? And in my head, I'm like, what do you mean, when are they going to leave?
Oh my goodness. So there's no space for you.
Yeah, like there's no space for you. And so at that particular time, I was told, you choose between either law or IT. Now, IT for me was...
Did you even have an IT?
There was no thinking about it. I knew I'm not interested in such stuff. Yeah. So that one was completely off. And so the only comfort I had in deciding to do law was that, again, at that time, I knew that there were very many people that were practicing in the space. Yeah. And they had not primarily studied, they hadn't gone to do mass comm. I knew Alan Kasuja, for example. He's a lawyer, but there he was in that space.
I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought to myself, do you know what?
Just do it.
Do it.
Then you'll branch
and then
out.
After that, you'll go do your stuff. So, yeah, but here we are.
Do we get to talk about... Do we get to talk about that?
Here we are.
The need to branch off?
Could be something that happens ultimately. I haven't yet given up. Yeah. Because I think I still nurture those dreams of doing that one time. If it isn't me doing it out of being intentional, that professionally I want to do it, at least it is something that I know I will do, because I think, should I die without doing it, it will be one of those things that I regret not having done.
Right.
I'll be on my deathbed thinking I should have done this. So be sure for all the listeners in Uganda or even beyond Uganda that you're going to hear me on your, what are they called? Airwaves? What are
airwaves.
That sounds funny, but yes, I'll be on that at a certain time. I'll have to do it. Time on TV,
yeah. See how you failed math.
It's X. It's T. But you had X's in math.
That was fine. That was somewhere else. That was the algebra, the graphs, and all those kinds of things. It's time
to do it. Yeah. It happens.
So here we are. You're talking about law, and then how do you get in the poetry place? I mean, you've talked about how you love literature, right? And now you're a spoken word artist. I don't even know when I learned that word.
Spoken word artist.
It must have been like Wild Campus. And then I watched you. I think the first poet that I experienced, or spoken word artist, I don't know, was, what's this guy? Kagai. And I was like, hey.
Wow.
And then I went to Azania. well, you see you.
Yes.
You need to talk about that as well.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, this is my friend, you know? So how did you break into these? Because right now we have the YouTube, people get to see things and they learn. How did you break into this space?
Yeah, so for me, first of all, to backtrack a little bit is that so while still at Namilyango College, yeah, with the guys.
You are?
Yeah.
I'm
too calm to be a Ngonian. Yeah, I understand.
Shut up.
Like, I'm too calm. Many people do not believe it. They're like, how did you turn out
you
okay?
Are?
Yes, I was.
I'm shocked.
I was.
Why am I shocked?
You know?
You're a dupe. You con artist.
I am from
right,
Namilyango. Yes.
Right.
So while at Namilyango, I used to like to write.
Yeah.
So much of the time I would write poetry, and so the poems I would write though at that time were really for my own
consumption.
Yes, consumption. Like I would write my stuff in a book and read it by myself.
But in schools there were those clubs. You didn't used to publish in the magazines?
Yeah, so there were those clubs and everything. But so my writing, I think S1, S2, S3, that was me writing without really sharing. What would happen is, of course, you always have that small circle of friends that you will give to read some of the stuff that you've written, and then they will tell you how good that is, and you're like, But then ultimately you would be for the magazines, yes, you put it out there, but then those magazines would really take a number of articles, so it isn't that you would that there would be a spotlight on something that you've written. Maybe someone could see it and like it and meet you on campus. First, wait, it's also campus, right? In high school, is it?
Compound.
Okay, compound. Meet you on the compound, and then tell you, oh, I saw something you wrote, and then it was really nice. But those would be few. So for me, where the point of validation was, I think in around the 3 there was a competition that was running across high schools. That was organized by, I think it was UNICEF in partnership. I don't know with what.
Yeah.
So they do it, and schools were, students were submitting. So I also submit a poem.
Yeah.
So I submit my poem. That time my poem came second best.
Whoa.
So we called to the National Theatre.
So that was awards. Second best amongst all the schools.
Yes, amongst all the schools.
That was huge.
Yeah. So I was like, what? There's someone out there who thinks my stuff is as good.
Yeah.
So we went to the National Theatre, but then number of schools, Bingo babes all over, Budo, smarkists, everyone was in there. And I sit next to some two Bingo chicks. But that's a story of another day. another day. So called me up to receive my award.
Yeah.
Babes kept looking at me. And I was like, I can keep looking. Still gathering the energy and the courage to say something to you. Never really happened. But again, that's another different conversation.
Yeah.
So from that point on, and there was also a cash prize. Oh, it was a cash prize, yes. They give you a certificate and then some money. Man, by then...
That was great.
By then, 100,000, like 100K.
Yeah.
You guy, I planned all sorts of things around that money. But anyway, so having won that for me, it gave me the confidence, and it's a thing that I've always used when I'm encouraging people to write.
Yeah.
Somehow, and especially for the females, whenever you meet them and you ask them whether they write, they tell you, yes, I do, but it's for my own consumption. So you ask them, why is that so? And the answer is always the same.
Which one is that?
My work is too personal. Like I write about, things that affect me. So me having to put it out there would be like me
putting themselves out there.
Yeah, that they don't want to do.
And I have a feeling they do it in their moments of vulnerability.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it doesn't come off so easy in a society whereby everyone is supposed to be a boss bitch.
Exactly.
Or the guys are what? The women are boss bitches. The guys are what?
I don't know.
Is
macho anywhere in that?
Macho, something of that kind. So giving out your vulnerabilities must be some tight thing. I was doing that. I used to write for myself to release my emotions.
Okay.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have another subject reading through. It would just be you.
No.
Once you've poured it all out on paper, that is it for you.
And I would feel much better. So when you say that the women are doing that, I was like, hey, I mean, I'm that woman. I was doing that.
Yeah, so that would happen a lot, but I would still encourage people to, of course, the ability to write and the skill to perform are totally two different things. So, but nonetheless, for me, I always encourage people to be, you tell me, right? I tell you, have you ever thought about performing? Because then I think there's a certain different kind of life that putting a voice to something that is written, gives it. There's a certain life it gives it. And for me, I'm always primarily encouraging people to embrace that form of art where they will do that.
Yeah.
If you can't, well, it's also understandable. You can be in your space and own it and grow in it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't say that there is one that is better than the other. But yes, so for me, having gotten that validation that my stuff can actually count for something out there, is when I now started, freely writing.
And that was
publicly.
At the age of 15.
Was I 15?
That's S3.
S3, yeah?
Yeah.
About that, 15,
I'm trying
16.
Yeah.
I'm thinking so, yeah. So I decided to, and so from that time on, I would write in the magazine, even be ready to take up the spaces of, need an editor for this, like, can we send poetry to you to edit?
Take up spaces from then on.
Yes, so, and I would be confident about doing it. Before I really wasn't.
What do you mean? UNICEF giving you money and a wallet? You just rule the whole club. Like, you guys, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it went, and now the performance itself, of course, didn't start in high school. So
you were just writing.
Yeah, I would just write. So performance started in at campus at law school.
Yeah.
And that's when we found the Azania platform. And now I would keep seeing, at that time, Lantern Meet of Poets used to have poets come over for our gatherings.
Yeah.
And they would perform. And so this time who did I see? A friend of mine. I started with Mujuni, Raymond. So Raymond at that time was doing poetry, spoken word. Yes, that's Raymond.
The journalist?
Yes, that's Raymond.
He was in UCU?
No.
Oh, he just used to come through?
No, so, okay. I studied with him in A-level, well as at Kiira College Boutique.
Yeah.
So I studied with him, and then when we got to campus, of course, he didn't come to UCU, like he went to Makerere. But I know that he has also studied from UCU. He's gotten a degree there. So he used to come with the Lantern Meet of Poets to perform at UCU. So one particular time I see him performing, and it was a very long poem. And the guy was not reading from anywhere.
Oh, yeah?
So, and I think for me, it was a stepping stone at that time, because this was someone I could relate with. You know, it's much easier when you know the person, you'll be like, if this guy can do it, then I think there's a way that I can do it. Yes, it's not foreign.
It's more like in-house.
So I kept asking, I'm like, man, how are you able to perform that entire thing without reading from anywhere? He told me, man, we have like a couple of weeks of, just rehearsing this stuff. I was like, I need to give it a try, because again, I kept thinking, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Boss.
So it ultimately came to it. One of the Azanias, the Grand Azanias, I decided to, unfortunately, it was one of those shows that flop. And so I hadn't exactly, I wasn't so sure I would get the space. But I'd come thinking, okay, if it comes up.
How soon was that? Was that in your first year?
That was like in my second year.
Yeah.
In my second year. So I think the audience at that time, because the hall is big, but since the show had flopped, they were like, what, 10 or 20 people?
Yeah.
Most of whom were my, classmates.
Ouch.
So I'm like, you know what, if they're saying it's going on, they're still calling guys, if you have something to perform, come and do it. I was like, what the heck? So I just went there, and as it is with most people that are first timers, or people that want to disguise as first timers, not to have expectations so high. I was like, guys, it's my first time.
You had to explain. Please take my flaws.
Yes, exactly.
Take my mediocrity.
Then I went on. And interestingly, guys came and they're like, what? This was your first time?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Like, that was really good. Again, validation. And I'm like, something should be right.
Right.
So from then on, I kept doing it. Started performing with a certain group. Used to call ourselves the Absurd Gentlemen.
Absurd.
We're 3 lawyers.
Absurd Gentlemen.
Yes.
Why did you come up with that? Why were you absurd?
I think it was we called it absurd because we you know those instances where people come together to do something they have in common or that they love, but then their characters are totally different, and then their style of performance is totally different. So
like you just have to come together.
Yes, like we'd all do poetry. Yeah, but everything about us. If you met us today, and it's a thing that we want to you know to be able to do again, to record some more poems, you know, together. But if you met us today, one of them is called Jordan Megolonyo, the other is called Bruno Edgard. They're incredible poets. Jordan is like the king of rhyme. Rhyme. Music to the ears all the way through. And then Bruno takes on a more, you know, dramatized performance. He doesn't need, sometimes he falls on stage, you know, like roll to get his message. So his is more dramatic, almost like he's made for theater. I don't know, but then he's also really rich on intonation, and you will see what he's saying even without him moving his body. And then me, on the other hand, some people like to say that I would be best suited for page poetry. Page? Yeah, page. Like,
what is that like?
So you'll notice that there are guys.
So in poetry there are types?
Man, that's another discussion.
You guys.
Like people call that, you'll find some poets saying, oh, that guy is a page poet.
What?
Yeah, that's so for them they cannot do well on, you know, spoken word performance. They can't. They are better suited just writing that stuff and giving it to the world to read. You understand that? So for me, the way I would write, you'll also notice that there are people who will do spoken word. They will be on stage and do their thing, but it's very hard for them to put it into
writing.
Yes. Or if they did, it would lose the effect. It would lose that effect because it's best expressed in word. So that those. So mine is a little more of that, and with a, you know, more laid back tone to it, and you know, so we have differences. So that's how the absurdity came in. So we used to and sometimes you'd have Runyankore poetry. Me, I'd bring in the Lusoga. The other guy is
you did that Lusoga for me, and I was like, hey.
I remember.
Where have I been? What do you mean you remember?
Weak in the knees, but just to move on and say,
oh my goodness.
But poetry is so beautiful.
You're worst, man.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. So that has been my journey with. Of course, at a certain point, it moved on from you know, law school. And I think if you met anyone, they would tell you the things that really mattered a lot to me. Poetry was like one of the things. Like sometimes guys would be like, man, you came here to study. But the way you love this poetry thing. So, and that also carried all the way through to, you know, LDC, still you know,
you were
poetry.
chasing that.
Yes, and mooting and poetry. Hand in
getting
hand.
your voice out.
Exactly. And I like to always say, when people ask me what exactly inspired you to love moots this much in law school.
I've asked you that question.
You've asked me that question before, and the answer has been actually poetry, poetry.
No.
What was it? What did I
The answer that you gave me was you always like to give your side of the story.
That's one.
That's the only one I remember.
That's all you remember? Okay. So there is that, but then also at the core of giving my side of the story, because also you realize that for me, in essence, poetry is also, you know, reflective of that it is me as a poet trying to give my side of the story. Of course, much of the time, the story I'm giving is also representative in a way, because then, okay, people would like to say that poets are society's mirror and stuff like that.
They are.
Yeah, so...
like, you're our prophets. You know, let me tell you something. I'm sorry, I have you, right? But I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking about Kagai.
It's okay. Kagai is
This 2065 thing.
2065, yes.
That guy had just gotten that poem out, right? And he was talking about how kids are going to start being given family planning.
Yeah.
I think less than a year after the launch of the headline that morning, somewhere in South Africa, they were proposing to, I think, give kids as early as the age of 10. It's like,
yeah, and that narrative is all over. Yes,
you guys, you were like,
you talked about this.
Yeah, like how do you know this, right?
Yeah.
So when you say they're society's mirrors, like, I can't deny
and that poem is really strong and the things that it talks about,
it's a mess.
and even seeing them happening in Uganda where he some other person would think he playfully talks about how in 2065 they'll be taxing us for the air we breathe.
He's a spy. He needs to tell us who paid him to write it.
So you see a number of things happening now, like taxes cropping up at every little thing, and you're just like, this is what was being talked about in this poem. But
do you sleep and envision these things? Do you just how? Do you have a special spirit with you guys? And you just say, this man, I feel like this is going to happen. Or do you just be sleeping like Joseph and the angel says, hey man, take Jesus to Egypt?
It's interesting, the things that spark off, people's creativity.
Yeah.
Some are just plain annoying things, disappointments, frustrations. Of course, others will definitely talk about love. Yeah, also the beautiful things are there. It's not good to only talk about the others, because again, people have always had that narrative going that most poets are, all poets are sad people. Had that a lot.
They're sad people?
Yeah, that because
I don't heard that
You've
anyway.
never heard about that.
I just knew you guys are crookheads. Like,
are we?
Like, this guy, you're not sure if he's performing or he's vibing you. So before you know it, you're falling for it.
Actually, had a number of times when I would be talking to females, and the thing is also because naturally I like to joke a lot. So now when you couple that with being a poet, for most ladies it's almost like every single time I go to them, and then I start saying these words. Yeah. And they laugh it off. They're like, Brian, you will not experiment on me. Don't experiment on me. And you're like, oh my God, I'm actually being serious.
No, we can't take you serious.
No wonder we've been single for so long. But everything comes to an end.
Amen.
Yeah, it always comes to an end. I wasn't meant to be single. At a certain point, it had to happen. There's one girl out there who took me seriously. But yes, it was quite the drought. But we actually, some of us like to use our words for noble causes. For noble causes. So we shall not speak for those that have used them otherwise. But yes, so I don't know what I was even going to talk to now, but for me, the poetry, spoken word, also inspired my love for moot court in law school. Yeah. So the thing that people never used to understand, and they would always ask me, so Brian, I think you'll make a very good advocate in court. You love to stand up and make arguments and whatnot. And I told them, guys, this is not it. Like, I'm not doing this.
It's not always about you.
Exactly, So I'm like, that's not it. For me, the love was coming from. So they never used to understand why I would spend so much time doing moot court and not be, so much zealous about being in court arguing. Because for me it was all about performance. So I would carry the very essence that that informs my spoken word performances to the moot court stage. So for me, moot court was always a stage.
Performance.
Yes, it was a performance. Wow. And even right now, as I coach students on how to moot. Yeah. Many of them find it weird that along the course, I'll tell them, I'm inviting a poet, a spoken word poet, who is going to teach you in this session.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's
so the guy will come. The very last time I invited Davis the poet, to talk to students, law students, and I just told him, I hadn't even briefed him. I just told him, I want you to teach the students what performance poetry is about, what you need to do, everything, the ABCs of performance poetry.
Yeah.
That guy came. He's never been to a law class. Never. He spoke using poetry, performance thereof, to things that are key, but then also double as being key in moot court.
Yeah.
Because as a poet, performance poet, you're going to look out for things such as you have an audience, which in the law section would be the judges that you're having. Those are humans, as it is. Even on the other side, they want that as you perform, you look at them. I don't know if you've ever seen a poet that performs, but they're not looking at the audience, because at the end of the day, as a poet, but also as a moot court lawyer,
you have to communicate to the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're communicating to me, just as I am right now, if I'm talking to you and I'm not looking at you, it will just be weird.
It's not easy.
Yeah, and I will not relate with you that easily. So look at the judges as you're speaking.
Yeah.
And don't just look at one of them. So if you have an audience, know that you're going to look in the center at one point, look on the right, look on the left. You have to engage everyone and make them feel like they're part of the conversation if you're going to relate with them. Concept in performance poetry.
Yeah.
Talking about intonation, that if you're having a monotone throughout your submissions in court, I know that in Uganda, it might pass because again, the judges aren't, so much flexible to, lawyers that want to be all, what should I call it, fluid with their language.
Yeah.
I think some of them think you're being dramatic. If I'll give an example of even just instances where I've seen Aaron Chiza, because Aaron Chiza is a poet, but you've seen social media carrying his some of the things that he has written, his pleadings or something. He likes to write poetically, so when he does that, people always share them and they're thinking, what, why would you write like this? Like, it is actually beautiful language, but I think in Uganda people haven't
we are
gotten
very conservative.
people haven't gotten to that place where flair, is something that you need to put out there in a professional world. And so there is that, but monotones can't be a thing, because even in moot court, as it is in poetry, I can't be speaking to something that is grave and I'm speaking in a tone that doesn't portray the gravity of the situation. So you have to know that things such as body language, like those are the things the guy Davis spoke to. And I was like, thank you, this class is done. Like, do you guys realize how performance poetry is pretty much
the same?
At least in as far as presentation is concerned. Because then again, when it gets to the other things, I think that goes
to every area of presentation.
Yes, it goes to every area. Really, it does. So presentation-wise, so I would use poetry as a tool. I still do. To coach students on how to do this. So for me, it was the love for stage, and you should be able to experience the feeling that you have when you're speaking to people. And for me, again, this happened a lot in moot court. When you have a bench of judges and you're speaking. Remember, before you probably had teammates or other lawyers that were speaking, and at every single thing they were saying, being question after question after question. Then you come and you start to speak, and they're all just looking at you. They're just looking at you. Like that thing happened at LDC. It happened at LDC where we had, now leave the law school moot courts where you'd have students of fourth year coming to judge you. At LDC we had judges, justices from the Court of Appeal, from the Supreme Court, from the High Court, seated there listening to us. I spoke, I submitted, and they were all just looking at me. Oh my God! I'll do anything. So for me, and that is also the kind of vibe that sometimes you'll get when you're performing. It's a thing that people never understand, but as a performer, the instances you'll step on a stage and you'll notice that there is a negative energy somehow. Like people might even be quiet for all you know. But when it's just cold, you feel these guys are not with me. And then there's those instances where the hall will be quiet, the audience will be quiet.
But you're connected.
Yes, and you feel that you're speaking to them. Yes, you're accepted. So for me, it's that feeling that really got me into moot court, because it was similar to, performance poetry.
Well, I think you actually grabbed my listeners as well.
I hope I did.
He's not going anywhere.
I hope. I hope
so here we are in the art spaces. Yeah, you're a poet, spoken word artist, and I'm looking at you and the 15, 16-year-old who won a prize of 100,000, and now. Did that ever make you feel like I can make money out of this?
Thank you. And yes, I know you're laughing, and this is also a conversation that has come up in my formal employment. It has come up because, again, I've been asked, Brian, have you ever thought about doing poetry professionally?
Yeah.
And there's always a little bit of pause there.
Is there such thing as professional poet?
I like to think so. I don't know, but I like to think so. But anyway, let's talk about it as, you doing it to actually get
money
a living out of it. I thought about it at the time before joining LDC. After law school, I looked at the options that were ahead. I knew one. I didn't want to join LDC because I saw no reason to. I kept thinking, nah, I don't need it. But then somehow I was pushed into doing it.
Status quo.
But then also I wanted to moot again.
Can you imagine?
I knew there was a moot that LDC had, and I was like, I have to do that moot. Actually, a couple of moots that were, and so I had to do those moots, and I excelled at them. So for me that was like a win. A win. Many people don't know that I dropped out of LDC. I did. But for me, having gotten those 2 wins that had primarily inspired me to go to LDC. For me, I got everything I wanted out of LDC. But that's a totally different discussion. I think if we got into now discussing why I dropped out of LDC and what that means right now, the discussions around that are like a whole different episode that you would have. But yes, I like to share that narrative, because again, stories of I'll call it what society calls failure are usually not talked about. Like people don't want to be the person that comes up and says, oh, that guy is brilliant, but man, he went to LDC and he dropped out. Oh, they might not even mention the fact that you're brilliant. At the point that you failed, you're written off as he failed at that. So that is a discussion that I like to put forth to encourage people that, it's not like society has a number of things that it will portray as, the holy grail. Like if you do not, then
you fail.
You're doomed. You're doomed if you're in this path and you haven't gone it the way that those that came before you have. Then you failed. You know, which isn't the case. So, what was I talking about?
It was about how, whether you imagine the moment when you got that cash prize at the age of, did you ever imagine you would make money out of it?
Yeah. So at some point, before I made the decision, or as compelled into doing LDC, I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what, why don't you just concentrate on this? And again, just to say, because before I realized you kept saying that you didn't want to bring up Kagai when we're here. But like still I'll also talk about him, because man. He was he had that story. He's
when
a lawyer.
You mentioned it, I remember.
He came to mind, yes. So he also did the same. He got into LDC, I think at a certain point, then he's like, nah, not worth it. Not worth it. So he went all the way out on poetry, and I have to say, as we speak, he's one of those poets that you look at in the Ugandan space. And he has done a lot in that space. He has, I don't know if much of the time he cares to even speak about it, or it is just that he leaves his works and everything that he's doing to speak for itself. I don't know, but everyone has seen that you can be able to have a living, an earning rather, out of poetry.
Yeah.
And he has done it. He has gotten funding, and he has, trained and groomed very many poets.
Yeah.
And so I like to believe that there can be earning out of poetry.
Yeah.
But I also hasten to add that unfortunately, if you go there with the primary motive of
to make money,
you might not get to it. So I think for these arts, really, it is that you get into it to like do your work, and it's the one that will move you to the money.
Yeah.
But do not put the money in front, otherwise you're going to be very, very frustrated. And so my workmates, I've had workmates of mine that have told me, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
And for me, the sorry, and again, I know that some people might find this what should I say? Offensive, derogatory, and whatnot. But I think our industry is still at a place where you really have to tread cautiously before, like, I give up for Kagai. I keep saying I give it up for him, because that is some courage in the industry that we are in, the industry that people invite poets and they pay them 20,000, 3,000 for a border. Give you lunch, like, oh, so sorry, we couldn't get the money. Those are guys that have had a budget. They have an event and they have a budget of about 10 million.
Yeah.
Now the funny thing is, they will invite a musician and pay the musician money.
Yeah.
Now I'll give an example, live example. When I was in law school and as a law society president, so at that particular time we're organizing a law dinner. And so at this law dinner, now being with the arts bias and poetry bias, I knew that poetry has to feature at the dinner that I'm organizing. And so at that time I reached out to Wake the poet, and Afri. I think you know Afri. Yes.
Both of them.
Yes, exactly. So I reached out to them. I'm like, you guys, I need you to come. So I asked them how much they
would need.
Yes, for that work. Now, for me, I was very laid back. Like, I put it to them, tell me what your price is at that particular time. Now, I carried those figures as they gave them to me and took them to the executive committee for consideration. And then the funny thing is that remember I didn't reach out to them together. So each of them gave me the independent fee. Yeah. So it wasn't that they're being biased by the other. So I present what the musician, Afri, had given me. You guys are like, that's fine. Then I present what Wake had given me, which was pretty much about the same amount. Yeah. So they're like, now no, there's no way we're going to pay. Like a poet, like the guy is just going to come and speak a few words for maybe even under 5 minutes, and even 5 minutes is a stretch. I think they use like 3 minutes, and you're paying them this much.
Takes the same time.
Yes, about even the same time. So in my head, I'm like, so people attach value to poetry one by how long you perform it for. But then you remember that is not all you've invested. What they are seeing is the product.
The end product.
Yes, it's the end product. I've had to put in a lot of, actually poets research.
Of course.
Yes, I figure some people think. Yeah, I figure some people think that we sit words and just start bouncing words off like, no, this here, this there. But people actually research, because it would be absurd for you to speak to a societal issues. These are issues that affect people, and then you're speaking them from an uninformed point of view. You'll be so shallow. So if you are to speak out in public, you have to know that you have your facts right. So people do not count what you've invested to get those 5 minutes. They will value you for the time that you're presenting it for. And it doesn't make sense. And I figure that also, certain times cuts through other professions. That people,
I was going to say that.
Yeah. That a person will come and tell you, all right, for me, a legal opinion. And the fact that it comes out and it's just a page, they will be like, Aish, I'm paying 1M for a page. And what I don't get is that there's a lot of work that goes in the background, in having that product. So there is our industry, unfortunately, is still at that place where people don't value the art form as much as I think they should. So for me, mine has always been a cautious journey to know that yes, I would really love to give my everything to this.
Yeah.
But I also know that I'm living in a situation where I have responsibilities. Yeah, so that tomorrow, if my younger brother called me and said tuition is needed at UCU, I'm not going to present a poem for the VC.
Why are you doing that?
I'm not going to. So I need to know the realities there is, but
you get to put the economy into consideration and figure out how you maneuver.
Yes. So and it's not to say that those that have done it differently, there are many wiser than they are. No, I think in a way I've been favored by circumstance to know that I can be able to do this while at the same time pushing this. It just helps my situation. Otherwise, if I didn't have the alternatives, you would find me using it, because at the end of the day we use what we have. And so if for the time, or when the time comes where I'm able to do the poetry, I'm able to do the singing as well, that in itself, and that is also one of the reasons as to why I'm trying to add a number of other skills to my art form, to package it in a way that I'll say is irresistible. Irresistible. So I want to have that product that will speak to many, because I've also noted that the number of segmentations in people's love for these arts. You'll find that there are people that are drawn who do not love poetry in its rawest form, but they will love it if it comes with music, for example. You've seen people fuse the two, and then the audience becomes bigger. So I would want to have that meet, poetry and music. Of course, in other deeper conversations, another person will say that is all poetry, really, if you ask me. And I also think it is, because you've listened to music. Music is poetry. Yeah, it is. But so right now I can't tell you that I thought about it, but then after careful thinking, I said, what, this is something that can still come later on. So
we look forward. We are witnesses. We'll be like,
we shall get this particular episode from the archives one day as reference point.
He was here. So this platform, this is a platform where we get to talk about self-development in line with mental health. Where the things that are affecting us as millennials. How do you take care of your mental health?
Oh, very
with
seriously.
You balancing all this. I mean, there is you being the lawyer and then the artist. I would just call you an artist because you're doing music, you're doing spoken word and everything. How do you get to balance it?
Mental health.
How do you keep it in check?
It's very, very important, and I actually put it at the fore for many decisions that I take. When you just heard me talk about dropping out of LDC, like many people will not understand. And it's very weird that no one will ever bring up that narrative when they are saying how they don't understand the decision you've taken. All the time it will be, no, Brian, you cannot do that. Like,
this is how it's supposed to be done.
You were in the very last term of your LDC. You achieved so much. You did the JSAP. You were the best, advocate in that year. Like, you cannot. And I'm like, guys, And the funny thing is, I never get the need or the obligation to explain to anyone, especially when they come from that perspective of just thinking, because I view the world this way. They come from a
place of crisis, like no,
exactly.
No, the world is crumbling.
Yes, like it is. But you're not with me in the night when I can't get sleep.
Yeah.
Or when, the next morning is breaking and I'm just thinking, can it be, darker for, some more hours? Like, I just need to be in this private space a little. You're not with me when I'm, going through all that. So you don't have a right in the morning to come and ask me why I took a certain decision that you think to you is very ridiculous.
Yeah.
So me dropping out of LDC was at that point, I'd lost all the will to continue with it, because again, the purpose for it, I wouldn't see it from the start. Even when I was getting in, the purpose was something that I just had to build on. So you cannot tell me that it is ridiculous for me to do that. So I left it because my mental health was being affected.
Yeah.
And incidentally, at about the very time, at that time I was working with a law firm. I left a law firm, still the job that I had. Like, these events all happened in the same time space. Not even a year. Like, as I'm leaving LDC, also, but then, okay, some people are not understanding how it comes up. But so after the entire stretch of LDC, I'd even already started working. So at that point, when results come back and everything, all that, the drama therein, and that institution is another thing. So, but I quit my job. I quit LDC.
Yeah.
At the same time, you should have seen the world.
The world was crumbling.
Like, you'd think that my life matters to many people.
Does.
To many people, it matters to me, but it's like everyone around me.
Yeah.
Felt like this was the biggest mistake of my life. Like, man, okay, so you've quit LDC, then you're quitting your job. They're like, so where are you going after leaving this job? I'm like, I'm
projecting
going nowhere.
their fears.
Yes, on me. I'm going nowhere. I had no plan B job.
Yeah.
Like, this was just me upping and leaving.
You just jumped
because
off the cliff.
I was just like, no, I can't do another day. Like, another day, I can't
live like this.
Yeah, I need, and not even to say that that my mental health was being I can't say that my employers were the cause of the mental health. No, they were not. The law firm I was in was it was an amazing place. It had its flaws, but they're not
like
as that
any
pronounced.
Other place.
Yes, as another place. But it also had, it came down also to me and, my priorities and what I'm thinking about, and being in a place of not knowing where I have to be heading.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that we're in a society where people are, they're living like they're in a race.
Yeah.
So like, I have to have finished this by this year, by this month. And yet for me, I noticed that if it came to a point where I was in a headspace where I realized that I needed to take a break, a pause, then I'm going to take it if it's for my mental health's sake.
Yeah.
So at that point, for me, that was it. I reached a point and I'm like, I need to take this break, otherwise I'm going to break. So I took it, and no one, and I can assure you, no one ever came to respond to the decisions that I took from the perspective of mental health. Like, how are you up there? Like, is there a problem? Like, people don't know.
We don't know.
So I was like, nah. So for me, it's important
for
that people
period,
know that.
It's a thing that we trivialize, but we're getting there. We're getting in a space of appreciation.
We actually still have. I have peers that up until now believe that issues of depression, anxiety are issues of white people.
No, but at least we're starting to appreciate it. People are having conversations about it, open conversations about it.
I was recently amazed by a student who told me that at school, at campus, nowadays there are students who come up to each other and greet themselves and they say, oh, how is your mental health? And I was like, that is happening.
That's a little bit hard.
And I was like, that is happening. But for me to hear that there are people that are actually, like, you see now you're saying that is hard.
Yeah.
But like there's
because we're not yet to a place whereby someone just comes on out and say, and they say my mental, because even the people that know very well that they're in the space of mental health advocacy or activism, they know someone might not really understand. So it's not so easy for you to come out and say, how is your mental health? What?
but you know now like for example, if we're having this conversation and you know that you know this discourse, you understand it. Now to you, trust me, I can come and ask you that question because I know that you'll understand what it is that I'm talking about. I want to know how you're doing, not just generally, because everyone is into the business of, oh, I'm fine, we move on, we smile, we post on our Instagram, on our statuses, life is good. Don't ask for better, but
social media.
So for me, it is really important in everything that I do, in juggling this and that. It's at the fore. It's at the fore. I need to have those check-ins and know that this is not affecting me. Mentally.
So take a break. Before you break.
Exactly.
I've taken that from you. Thank you so much for being with us, for honoring us.
Thank you for having me.
The invite, gracing us with your presence.
Having me. Long time. I felt like we could go on and on.
I know.
I've never been a retaker, but I hope that.
Show off.
But thank you for having me.
As who have retakes, what do we do?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take a break before you break. This right here is my takeaway from this episode. I've been thinking about how or when I'll take a break this year. It's only 4 months into 2020 and man, I need a whole vacation. Checking in on your mental health as often as you can is something all of us should adopt from Kiira, because you do not only want to remember to check in when it's too late, and neither do I want to come here and remind you when it's too late. On the part of hustling, do your work. Like the way how this guy said it, do your work. The money will find you. As in, push. The money is going to find you, So thank you for tuning in into another episode of Hashtag with Nabuguzi Kiwanuka. If you loved what you heard, make sure you subscribe to Hashtag with Nabuguzi Kiwanuka in your podcast platform of choice and share it with your friends. Let them know that this is the hub for all their desired content, right? It's not even PG-18. Wait, it should be? Is that what you guys want? No, I'm joking. I didn't ask that question. Also, feel free to share your insights about what connected with you on social media, and be sure to tag us. We are at Hashtag with Nabuguzi Kiwanuka on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter our handle is at HTNK Podcast. HTNK is all caps lock and podcast is in small case, but it's all one word, at HTNK Podcast. Then we got an email address last week, right? Especially for the introverts who wish to communicate privately. So when you wish to reach us on email, do email us on htnkpodcast@gmail.com. htnkpodcast is all in small case for the email, right? Don't confuse the two. For the email, it's htnkpodcast all in small case @gmail.com. Your reviews are welcome, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Don't forget to take a break. Catch you next month. Adios.